toxic family systems, narcissistic family systems, dysfunctional family systems. I don't know. They all seem to kind of fall into the same category to me. My little disclaimer here is I'm not degreed. I don't have a formal education in these matters. I'm not a counselor. None of the above. Professional qualifications to speak on subjects like this, I have none. I do have experience. I do have observations. I've read a lot on these topics. I've had to. I believe the Lord facilitated my healing from the divorce by doing so. And as these systems relate to what we all refer to as the scapegoat, the most difficult aspect of these kinds of relationships to deal with, in my humble experience, is having to learn and accept that there is no love in these family systems. I first began to learn that well over 30 years ago, and I don't think I really comprehended what I was saying. Many of you know that I was raised predominantly by an aunt and an uncle. My aunt, again, I can't diagnose. I don't have the qualifications to do that. But what I understand as being narcissistic traits, this woman held in abundance. And my life for a period of at least 11 years as an adult revolved completely around her. Now, that was my own fault. I'm not blaming her. That was the choice that I made. So I need to make that little disclaimer there. However, toward the end of my tenure taking care of her, she would frequently guilt trip me by shouting, "You don't love me, you never loved me." And I would say, "Well, I don't understand what you mean by that. My whole life revolves around you. Why are you saying that I don't love you? All I do, my life is taking care of you." "Well, you never loved me. You didn't do it out of love. You did it out of a feeling of duty and obligation." That hurt me very badly. After I left the situation, and I had to leave because it did become life-threatening, I began to realize slowly and surely that she was right, because she was incapable of being loved. Not because there was a deficiency in my ability to love, not because I did not wake every single day and move through every single day in the decision to love her, because she was incapable of being loved. I think that it's very important that the scapegoats in these family systems learn that. that's a very hard, almost impossible lesson to learn. Because most scapegoats do dedicate their lives to making it better for the family system. That's usually their reason for living, is I will make this right, I will make this better, I will change this, I'll pray hard enough, I'll cry oceans of tears, I'll try. Well, it's never enough, and we all know that, but that's how we live. That's how the scapegoats live. They try everything to make the situation better. You can't. You can't make it better. There's no way. Because the very real fact of the matter is that these systems are usually run by one person who, and you can kind of think of this as a solar system. So the sun is the top narcissist, whoever that might be. And my experience is it doesn't always have to be a parent. It can actually be a child. It can be a sibling. It could be an aunt. It doesn't always have to be the parent. There's usually one person in charge of this family system, and you can think of the sun as being that primary narcissist, and the planets in the solar system being the little satellites, or I guess that's the wrong expression to use, but the planets that revolve around that narcissistic sun. And everything that the planets do, say, think, feel, is not just to bask in the reflected glory of the sun or to reflect the glory back to that sun. That's not just their sole job description. Their secondary job description is to maintain the solar system at all costs. At any and all cost. The name of the game is A, preserving the primary narcissist reputation and self-perception. The secondary cause is to preserve the optics of the family dynamics. It doesn't matter who gets sacrificed to this. And anybody can become a scapegoat. Anybody. And one of the reasons I say this is because when the scapegoat finally realizes I can't live this way anymore, and they make the wrenching decision to leave and make a different life and not just survive, but they determine to go on and thrive. Well, now you've thrown the solar system out of balance. Not only have you removed one of the planets out of that solar system by removing yourself, you've created a vacuum in that space that you just left. And now the sun is missing one of the planets that's it's been used to reflecting its glory back to it. So the family system has to find another scapegoat. And it will look within its own family system to do it. And my observations are that usually the next scapegoat is going to be who was formerly the golden child. The narcissist, the primary narcissist, doesn't love the family. They don't love the spouse, and they don't love the children. That's one of the ugliest things about these family systems. If the primary narcissist is a parent, and the little planets in the solar system are mostly children, the narcissist children, that narcissist doesn't care about those children. He doesn't care, or she doesn't care about their spiritual well-being, doesn't care about their moral well-being, doesn't care about their mental, emotional, physical well-being. They simply don't care. These children are energy, they're energy sources, and B, they're weapons that the narcissist utilizes against the scapegoat. If a child can give the narcissist prestige, well, so much the better. And if that happens, say for instance, if the forgotten child turns out to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an Indian chief, then that's going to reflect very well back on the narcissist, and the forgotten child could suddenly become the golden child. It's okay for the narcissist to switch roles within that solar system because it's the narcissist who's making those decisions. But when the scapegoat gets ready to check out, it's not okay. Because you've taken power from that narcissist. You've wrenched control from that narcissist's hands. And I would suppose that on the rare occasions when these family systems hang together no matter what, say if the scapegoat decides to stay and just make the best of a very bad situation for whatever reason, and I don't condemn doing that by any means. Leaving a toxic narcissistic family system is one of the most terrifying things a human being can do. I would not wish that terror and that agony on my worst enemy. If the scapegoat decides to stick it out for a lifetime, and say the primary narcissist dies, somebody's going to be stepping into that place. There's always going to be a sun in that solar system. There's always going to be a planet that's ready to step right into the center of that solar system. I would assume that's why it's called a system. they're also called coalitions, and that's a very good name for them, because it's almost as if they, for instance, I used to say this about the husband's family, because they weren't just enmeshed with each other mentally and emotionally, they were enmeshed financially. And I used to joke with my friends that it was almost as if they were a closed corporation. It was no joke. They really operated as a closed corporation. These are not families. These are not families. And unfortunately, at some point, the narcissist is going to, the scapegoat is going to learn that there is no love. There is no loyalty. There is no fidelity. There is no faithfulness. There is no sense of duty or obligation or gratitude or respect or honor, because the only two things that matter are the narcissistic sun and the solar system that's revolving around it, the family system that revolves around that narcissist. And those two must be preserved at all cost. Scapegoats are blamed for everything. They blame themselves. That's just part of being a scapegoat, because this is what you've lived with all your life. You're the family trash receptacle, and you're taught that that's all you're worth, is being the family trash receptacle. And because the job of absorbing all of the negativity in the family has been designated at your feet, everything that goes wrong is your fault. You're the one who is held responsible. I'm not going to say when things go wrong, because I don't think things ever go right in a toxic family system. I don't think they ever do. I think that the desire for things to be right is probably coming solely from the scapegoat, because the scapegoat is the only one with the discernment to see that there's something wrong to begin with. The chief narcissist, whoever that might be, is so busy in the occupation of worshiping him or herself, and the planets revolving around that narcissist are so busy in the occupation of worshiping the narcissist, how can anything be right under such circumstances? So here you have the scapegoat, and they're the only one, if you will, with any sense. And they're like, no, this is not what God intended a Christian family to be like. And that's the person that everybody throws all the garbage at. And you're not in that place because there's something wrong with you. You're in that place because there's something right with you. Truly. That's why you're in that place. You're in that place because you're the only one with horse sense. You're in that place because you're the only one that has reached out to grasp the discernment that God has offered you and made it your own. You're the only one who can think straight because you've made the choice to do that. And by your very life, you're telling this narcissistic, toxic family system that they're all wrong. And yes, unfortunately, they wind up hating you for it. They never loved you to begin with because they're incapable of loving. It isn't just that they're incapable of being loved, they're incapable of loving. And they wind up hating you because by the grace of God, you are the antithesis of everything they are. I guess I want the scapegoats of the world to unite. I really. And you never escape that role. Even when you leave, my understanding is that the family system kind of keeps a hologram of you standing around, and throughout the years they're still blaming you for everything that ever went wrong, for everything that does go wrong. And I'll give you an example. This is a true story. When I left my aunt and uncle's home, what is going on? There's a notification up at the top of my screen. Okay, so my computer must not be properly plugged in. You know what? I'm going to save that story for another video because it says recording will stop soon. So I guess before that happens, I will stop it. So come back, y'all, and I will try to expand on this.